What's up guys and welcome back to the third episode of my Minecraft hardcore adventure. First of all, I wish you all the best for the coming year 2023 and a peaceful Christmas with friends and family. Today I got something special for you, because in this episode I dug out 4.5 chunks to build automatic farms inside that will supply me with melons, pumpkins, iron, bamboo, slime, sugarcane and cactus for the rest of my life. Not only that, I also built a huge castle on the island to hide all the farms and to create another highlight in the landscape. In order to build all of this, I needed more farms in the distance, and so I also built a witch farm and a guardian farm. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and without further ado, let's get right into today's episode. Of course, I haven't forgotten the task from the last episode, because you were supposed to write me suggestions for the horse names in the comments, and for that I first grabbed some name tags and immortalized you with your suggestions in the series. On the one hand, we have Morbius, who has now been named after Maybe. Morbius is a true fighter and will surely live up to his name in the future. Thank you very much Maybe for your suggestion. Secondly, we have Suit here, which is short for Suit of Speed. Suit was named by Flame, and both Suit and I are very grateful for this suggestion. With this name, it will be easy to defeat our enemies. The next suggestion comes from Cerberus, and it is Invincible for the white horse with the diamond armor. A really fitting and powerful name that goes great with the horse. Thanks to Cerberus for this suggestion. The last of the bunch is Phoenix, and Phoenix was also named by Maybe, and much like the namesake magical bird, he will also rise from the ashes and join us on every journey. Thanks again to Maybe. So much for the horse names. I am very grateful that so many have participated in this task. I think some really nice names came out of it, and now it's time for the actual video. So, to start off today's episode, I first dealt with the actual area on which I want to build. Exactly in the middle of the island was a slime chunk, which is great to build a corresponding farm. Actually, I wanted to build a slime castle on the island, but that turned out to be a failure. I set my markers and started digging. To complete the first farm, I then built a collection system for the items at the bottom of the farm and added a few iron golems to each layer. The iron golems attract the slimes, causing them to fall into the depths and burn on the magma blocks. A very practical farm. The actual design is made by Eric on his period, who is a German Minecraft creator. You can find the original video and the link to his channel in the description down below. Next, I outlined the respective chunks to see exactly where and how much I have to remove. All 4 chunks are of course removed by hand, whereby the beacon from the last episode was a great help. Halfway through the first chunk, I ran into a problem, and it was water. Water is extremely annoying to remove, so I decided to loot an ocean monument, kill the Elder Guardian and empty the sponge rooms. The Elder Guardians were no big deal, and so I fought my way through the monument and was eventually rewarded with enough sponges. Time to travel back and continue my work. There we have it, the last stones of the first chunk I dug. The whole thing took me about 4 hours and should now be repeated 3 more times. But for now, chunk 1 is officially done. During the last chunk I got the rarely stupid idea to use TNT. I thought it would make everything go faster and easier, but the fact is that it only made things much more difficult for me. This chunk took me the longest, just under 6 hours. I really had nothing to laugh about, and besides, it was extremely annoying to have to constantly rebuild my beacon. However, this was necessary because otherwise it would have taken much longer. In the end though, this silly idea couldn't stop me from mining the last chunk completely and down to the bedrock. The only thing the farm island is missing now are the actual farms. So the first farm I dedicated myself to was the sugarcane farm, and it was a real challenge. I had not calculated anything beforehand, and I must say that I had underestimated the amount of resources that you need for the observers and pistons alone. Nevertheless, I managed to build a few layers with the available resources, and the profit from this is already impressive. The farm is unfortunately not lossless, but such a farm would not have fit efficiently into one chunk. As I mentioned before, this farm alone costs me an enormous amount of resources, which is why I ran out of iron for the pistons pretty quickly. Therefore, it became necessary to build an iron farm above the slime chunk. The design of the farm is from Chalkacraft. You can also find the link to the video and the channel in the description down below. For the farm, of course, I needed villagers. I got them in my trading hall. Then I brought them by minecart to the island, where they can now serve a new purpose, namely being threatened day and night by a zombie to spawn iron golems. After I got the farm up and running, I dedicated myself to my second bottleneck, namely the redstone. For this I looked for a witch hut to build a redstone farm. I found the closest hut about 4,000 blocks from my spawn. So I'll set up a nether highway later. The build was pretty quick and easy, and the design is also from Shulkercraft. So now I have not only a redstone farm, but also a farm for glowstone, glass bottles, spider eyes, sticks and sugar. So with that, the first farm is complete. Let's move on to the cactus farm. cactus farm was by far the cheapest of all, though I have to admit that it was the most annoying to build. I will end up merging the farm with the bamboo farm to create a bone meal and XP farm, which mainly justifies building the farm. So now the second farm is also complete. Next up, I briefly dedicated myself to designing the pumpkin and melon farm, but paused after a few layers because I ran out of resources again. Instead, I started designing the castle on the island. During the course of the video, I kept going back to the redstone farm. Partly I have waited 24 hours at a stretch at the farm and had simply switched on my PC overnight. The whole thing takes quite a long time, of course, and while I was waiting for the iron, I then started to build on the castle. I started with the entrance to also test the idea with the slime castle, and the base is once again deep slate and spruce wood. I actually wanted to create a slow transition from normal blocks to blue concrete powder, blue terracotta, and then to slime. The idea looked pretty good in my head, but as you can see, that idea pretty much fell apart. So it all has to go again. So I had to rethink. I just wanted to follow through with the original design of the base, and that's how I built the walls of the castle. In the meantime, it occurred to me that sugarcane was being produced all the time and I wanted to collect it. So I built a collection system to transport all the items to the top and store them there in chests. Brief explanation. The farmed sugarcane is collected in a chest at the bottom, which is connected to a hopper. This hopper leads into a dropper, which is powered by 2 observers, causing it to constantly output items. These items then go into a water flow that leads to a water elevator that takes the items up and into hoppers and chests again. As long as you are on the island, the chunk is loaded and the system works without problems. The whole system will be used later in the other farms too. As you can see, the system works quite well and brings all the items to the surface. Now I could continue the work on the wall. After I had completely built all the walls, I dedicated myself to a first watchtower design. I'll tell you in advance, this design will not stand the test of time. I got carried away and didn't really think about what I was building, which is why I didn't like the tower at all. At this point, I wanted to build with prismarine blocks, so I got to work and converted the nearby temple into a guardian farm. The design was once again done by Eric on his period, and with this we already have the next farm complete. Now the tower has to go again. It was replaced by a somewhat simpler design, which I also like much better. What do you think? Feel free to write your opinion in the comments. I repeated the design on all corners before moving on to the next project. Next up, I made sure that the whole castle would fit naturally into the area. To do this, I built a kind of foundation of rocks on which the castle will be built. I think the whole thing fits quite well to the area, and also the beach behind the fortress offers a lot of potential to implement the one or the other project in the future. Here is another little failure for one of the towers above the collection systems, but here is the actual attempt. I went with a different color palette this time. I used granite in all its variations as well as white concrete powder to texture the buildings. At the same time, I decided for myself that I would like to build the entire castle this way. I'm actually quite happy with the design. It looks better than expected and it's basically just to cover the collection system. That's why I think that will be enough. Let's move on to mirror it on the other side. The next building was again a bit more complicated. It was about covering the iron farm. For this I built a kind of main hall of the castle, which however now serves only optical purposes. Overall, the whole thing worked well, so I continued with another complex. On the right side of the castle I built a kind of tower which should serve rather military purposes in relation to the lore of the place. Therefore, the tower has a rather sparse decoration. However, I thought of a second use for the tower, because in the course of recording I didn't realize that we had already reached day 500 of the hardcore world. So I erected a monument at the tower to document our progress in the world. From now on, this is the Tower of the 500. I am proud to have already lasted 500 days. I hope many more will follow. But enough rambling, now it's back to work. I have devoted myself next to the building behind the main hall, which should eventually serve the purpose of a chapel. I also connected another building, which will later be part of the gardens and also leads down to the farms. Again, I tried to use a different block palette than before. The mix of clean stone and andesite looks good in combination with spruce wood and the prismarine blocks. But of course, I couldn't resist using deep slate again. Shame on me. After I also took care of the backside, I continued with the keep of the castle. This keep protects the nobles in case of attack or in times of crisis. It holds enough space for all the inhabitants of the castle and is built of solid stone. After that, I devoted myself to the interior. As you know, this is not my specialty, which is why I completed the interior, but did not equip it with furniture or decorations. If you have any ideas on how and what I can decorate the interior with, feel free to post it in the comments. I look forward to reading your suggestions. And here you can see the result. I also reworked the tower by adding a simple window design, and all that's left to do now is to create the garden of the castle. There's actually not much to say about the garden. I threw everything green into the garden and tried to arrange it nicely. After that, I took care of a path through the garden that leads to the building I mentioned earlier. This building serves as a kind of research lab for unknown plants, where the mage of the castle deals with all unknown plants that slowly appear in the world. That would complete the castle on the surface, and the time it took me to do it gave me the resources I needed to do the rest of the farms. The last of the 4 farms is the bamboo farm. I need the bamboo mainly as a fuel for the XP farm. This time I also built the farm lossless, which is why I needed an enormous amount of rails and minecarts to collect the bamboo and lead it into a chest. The whole thing took another 6 hours. In total I invested over 90 hours in the farm island. With the last blocks placed, I finished the building process of the 4 farms. Actually 5 if you count the relatively pointless slime farm. In the further course, I tried to think of a system for the XP and the bone meal. I decided to work with water streams again and to introduce the whole thing via hoppers into the respective systems. In my tests, the farm worked flawlessly and gave me enough XP to be able to repair my tools regularly. All this will be covered in wood and stone later. For the moment, however, I'll spare you further details. It was only important to me that the items lead unhindered from the respective chests into the ovens and composters. This was again regulated by droppers and observers. My original plan was to produce enough bone meal with the farms to supply a wood farm, but since I've already put in 90 hours, the conversion will follow in an upcoming episode. And that would complete the entire farm island. It was both nerve-wracking and a lot of fun. The 4 farms will supply me for the rest of my life and will hopefully produce enough bone meal for a huge wood farm in the future. Wasn't that a fulfilling episode? The only thing left for me to do is to bring some winter magic into our beautiful little hardcore world. And here we go, winter is here, finally. Look at the wonderful snow, everything is decorated, and I think you know what I'm going to do. I'm flying to our newly built castle, and now I start to build a Christmas tree. This tree is just for you, because your support since my first video is incredible. Over 50 people have decided to subscribe to my channel, and this tree will act as a thank you. Of course, we cannot miss to decorate the tree and to put a kind of star on top. I didn't really know what to go with, so I ended up choosing a gold block to top the tree. Look at that. What do you think about my Christmas tree? And that's it for today, guys. I am so glad I got this episode done in time, and now I am also very proud to present my first Christmas episode. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please leave a like and a comment, and if you don't want to miss any more episodes in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. There are some projects planned for the next year, and the next episode is already in the starting blocks, but this you will get to see only in the new year. I wish you only the best for the next year, celebrate and have a good time. Thanks for all your support, and now have fun with some beauty shots at the end, and I'll see you next time.